Hello, I'm Stephen Andrew Missick. In this episode of Voice the Word, we're going to be talking about persecution of Christians, religious persecution, the history of it, and Assyrian remembrances. This is August the 1st, and in some Syriac church traditions, this is the day in which the martyrdoms of the Maccabean martyrs is celebrated. On August 7th, we have Assyrian Martyrs Day. I want to talk a little bit about what that's about and its significance.
Jesus was an Aramaic-speaking Jew of the Middle East, and the Assyrians are Aramaic-speaking Christians in the Middle East who have endured persecution for over 1,000 years. Join Voice of the Word Aramaic Bible teacher, artist, and author Stephen Missick as he examines the Bible through the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times in which it was first revealed. Research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots. And now, Voice of the Word.
In this program, we're going to discuss Assyrian Martyrs Day and what's being remembered on this day of remembrance. And Assyrian Martyrs Day is the 7th of August. It's interesting, that's close to the 9th of Av, which is a day of Jewish tragedy, but we're going to talk about the tragedies that befallen the Assyrian people. Assyrians have endured many persecutions, and they have dedicated 3 days a year to commemorate the martyrs. April 24th is Sepho, which is the Aramaic word for sword, and it commemorates the Turkish genocide of Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks between 1914 and 1920, around the time frame of World War I. Especially between June and October of 1915, the Turks of the Ottoman Empire murdered more than a 250,000 of the Assyrians that were living what is today Turkey. So southeastern Turkey had a high Assyrian population. Now there's like Tur Abdin, where you have like 3,000 Assyrians or so of the Assyrian Orthodox tradition. But many of the Assyrian people lived in that region and were ethnically cleansed. And what we need to remember is things are going on right now. I want to talk about what's going on, what's gone on in the past, and what we need to do about it. So just a few months ago, we had Nagorno-Karabakh. You had Armenians and Assyrians who were ethnically cleansed by the Turkish Azerbaijanis into Armenia. So that's something that's happened just recently. So this isn't something that's happened centuries ago or a century ago. These things are still ongoing. And the international community ignored. You had in al-Baghdad in Iraq, there's a large Assyrian community, and there's probably an Iranian-backed bombing at a a wedding hall, and very little attention. And right now, Christians being killed in the Congo in Africa by Muslim militants, and it's not being reported. So we need to talk about it, and we need to talk about what we need to do about it. So one of the things we do is we observe and remember our martyrs. So we also have part of the liturgical calendar. You have days that honor the martyrs, and that's usually the first Friday after Easter. For the Assyrians, it's known as the Friday of the Confessors. On August the 7th, we have it's remembering when the Iraqi army with some Kurdish militias did an ethnic cleansing, or actually they did a massacre of Assyrians, killing thousands of Assyrian people in Semele. But I want to mention really quick is the martyrs. After Constantine converted to Christianity, the Persians looked at their Christian subjects with great suspicion and began persecuting them. So you had persecution under the Persians. And then when Islam came and conquered the Persians, you continue to have persecutions under the Muslims. So we have a long history of persecution and martyrs of the Assyrians, first by the Persians and then by the Muslims. And in my doctoral thesis, which I'm going to publish very soon, I did a timeline of Islamic persecution. And every 50 to 100 years since the Islamic conquest, there have been mass killings of Christians, both in Mesopotamia and in Egypt, as well as many other places. But that's what I was focusing on the Aramaic church tradition and the Coptic or Egyptian church tradition. So special attention is paid to martyrs on August the 7th and April 24th, and the liturgies honor them. We also had this is a statement where someone says persecution here is more than personal, it's also communal. In 2014, the city of Karakush in the Nineveh plain, it had more than 50,000 Christians, large buildings, comparable staff. They had schools, multiple clergy, libraries, a seminary. Then on August the 6th, the anniversary of the 1933 massacre, everything was destroyed in the hands of ISIL, or ISIS, which is known in Arabic as Daesh. They targeted the churches and the Christians specifically. So this has been a recurring tragedy. So what do you do about it? I want to mention the solution, actually, is we have in the Bible, we have the books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. In the King James Bible, those books are put in the apocryphal section. But the books of Maccabees are alluded to by Jesus himself and are also referenced in the epistle to the Hebrews. So it's mentioned in the Bible. But we have the story of a woman who's called Shemuna and her 7 sons. There's Assyrian traditions about this. Actually, there's 1st Maccabees, 2nd Maccabees, 3rd Maccabees, 4th Maccabees. 5th at Maccabees is Arabic Maccabees, and 6th Maccabees, which is the story of Saint Shemuna, is 6 Maccabees. So there's multiple Maccabees books. I'm going to do a teaching on that to understand the story of the Maccabees. But with the story of the Maccabees, the Greeks wanted to get rid of the Bible and get rid of people who believed in it. This is under the Seleucid Empire, and they're going to wipe out the Jewish people. They like trying to forbid that. They're going to forcibly assimilate them into Greek culture and civilization. So they're forbidding the use of Hebrew and Aramaic, burning the scriptures, and persecuting people who try to live according to the Bible, including Shemuna and her 7 sons. This story is told in 2nd Maccabees, chapter 7, and there's also a moving story of the martyr Eleazar. But what happened after that is the Maccabees, these people are called the Maccabean Martyrs, even though they're strictly not Maccabees themselves because of the fame of the name Maccabee. So we had the Jewish people, or just at that time, this is pre-Christian, so this is just God's people, people living by the Bible. And they were suffering and dying for their faith. And it got to a point where they decided they had to fight back. So that's what we have to do. We have to fight back. Well, how do you fight back against this? Well, one thing we do is we mobilize to help the church in need. Are those people who are displaced and have lost everything? Let's help them, right? Just render aid to them. So we have to have relief organizations. Another thing we need to do is we can't let these people win. They're trying to do ethnic cleansing, and we need to say, we're not leaving. This is our, the Assyrian people need to say, this is our ancestral homeland. This is our property, and you can't have it. We're not going away. That's important. But we have to educate people, and we have to speak about it. And, how many people are aware of the important story of the Maccabees? It's celebrated by the Jewish people on Hanukkah, and a lot of people are familiar with Hanukkah and the Hanukkah menorah. We have 2 Aramaic words associated with Hanukkah. Now, the word Hanukkah means dedication, because the Greeks had changed the Jewish temple, the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, to a temple to their pagan gods, and it defiled it. So the Jews, once they reconquered the temple, they had to dedicate it. And the word for dedication, which in this occasion was a rededication, is Hanukkah. Also, the leader of the Jewish resistance was Judah Maccabee, and that is the Aramaic word at the time for the hammer. So we have 2 Aramaic words here associated with Hanukkah. This is the replica of the menorah that my father built, and it's unique. It's the only full-size, accurate menorah, biblical menorah in the world. Now, the rabbis have built their own menorah, which doesn't look like it. What the rabbis like to do is they establish their own authority over that of the Bible. So the Bible describes menorah as looking like this. This is also based on archaeological evidence, but the rabbis want to supersede that with their own authority. So the Temple Institute has a menorah, but this is based on the Bible. This is based on archaeological evidence. The Temple menorah is based on dispensing with what God says in the Torah, in the Scriptures. The rabbis have come up with their own menorah in the Temple Institute. So it's inaccurate. But one thing about the menorah is it's lit during Hanukkah in this way that Jewish people assert and celebrate their heritage, right? And they've resisted religious persecution. So the Maccabees, what was going on is the people of God were being just massacred, and they decided that it was time to fight back. And they fought battles supernaturally and miraculously. They began to win battles. And I honestly believe there's a place for fighting against Islamic militants. Now, the war was executed terribly, but there's a place for fighting these people. We have to do it. Take military action against, and support military action against radical Muslims. The global war on terror. I served in 2 deployments on the global war on terror, and there's a place for fighting against radical Islam. But I have to say that we should try to find peaceful solutions. And one of those solutions is exposing the history of the genocides and persecutions that take place under Islamic law, under Sharia law. How they've done this for 1,400 years, how they're doing it right now, and how they intend to do this to greater scale in the future. We have to expose them, and we have to stop them. We have to educate people, because most people have no idea. The Muslims say that Islam is a religion of peace. In reality, they divide the world into Dar al-Salam, the house of peace, which is the territory conquered by Islam. And then you have Dar al-Harb, which means the house or the territory of war, where they war against it until they defeat it. I wish this wasn't true. I did not write the Quran. I did not write the Hadith. All you can do is respond to what they claim is from God, which is not from God. But it's a religion of global conquest. That's what they say. These so-called Muslim radicals, a lot of them are taking the text seriously and are trying to implement the text, the Quran and the Hadith, as written. And thank God there are moderate Muslims and tolerant Muslims, but we have to tackle the problems. We have to expose and tackle the problems with the source texts. And there are people who do that, and that is David Wood, the Assyrian Encyclopedia, Sam Shamoun, and others. And what I want to recommend in this program is a Coptic Christian named Raymond Ibrahim. And he's written several books about Islamic war and the brave people who fought against it. One of the biggest problems we have right now is Marxists in our educational system and the establishment, and how they are indoctrinating young people to hate Western civilization, but also to hate Christianity itself. And they try to create a jaundiced view of Christianity and its history and impact on the world. But I also want to recommend 2 things there's a man named Thomas Holland, and he wrote a book called Dominion about just the positive influence of Christianity in society and culture. I mean, all the human progress and scientific progress has been driven ultimately by Christianity. Thomas Holland also made an important documentary about the rise of Islam called Islam, the Untold Story, which basically proves that the origins of history, the traditional narratives that Muslims tell, are not historical. They're stories that were developed around the year 692, when Muhammad was supposedly died in the year 632, but he was seen alive in 634. So all these questions about history and Islam are dealt with in his excellent documentary called Islam, the Untold Story. And somebody else who writes about the positive influences of Christianity is Rodney Stark. We have anti-Christianism, you have Christophobia, in people in positions of power who are trying to destroy Christianity, people in institutions like the educational establishment, the federal bureaucracy, and Hollywood. They're anti-Christians, and we have to stand up and oppose them. And Raymond Ibrahim is doing a very good job in that he exposes the history of persecution of Christians under Islam, but he also talks about those who fought back and preserved freedom and democracy in Western civilization. Charles Martel. I wrote a book about Hanukkah called The Hammer of God, where I looked at it. It's about people who fought for religious liberty. That's what the Maccabean Martyrs were. These people gave their lives for freedom. And then Judah Maccabee, when it was absolutely necessary, he decided it was time to fight back, to fight for freedom. And then this was against what could be seen, it's kind of a parable what happened in biblical times is history is repeating itself. Back then it was the Seleucid Greeks trying to abolish faith in God and incorporate people into a pagan society. That's what we see going on with people like George Soros and others, secular, humanist, progressives, trying to wipe out Christianity. It's also something that's, I mean, they say it. They admit they're doing it. And we need to stand up against them and say, no, you're not going to do this. We have to oppose it. And we have to say, look, this is what you're doing is not history. It's propaganda. And we need to celebrate it. We need to know our own history. We need to celebrate our own history. And also honor the martyrs, but also those people who fought for freedom. And that's what Raymond Ibrahim is, a Coptic Christian. A lot of what he's written about the Coptic Christians and what they've suffered. And he talks about, there's books about that he's put out there and he's promoted. He's got a new YouTube channel. He's doing a very good job. But he's also celebrating Christians who fought back. We need a more militant form of Christianity. I'm not talking about, like I said, I do believe there's place for fighting as we did in the global war on terror, which we need to sometimes in valid ways to use military force to oppose this evil. But it's not necessary. If we just have people who are courageous enough, we can defeat these people with the truth by exposing their shameful past, by exposing what's written in their so-called sacred texts, and just showing them for what they are, as an oppressive, anti-Christian, anti-God, and immoral system of radical Islam. And we can't just be victims anymore. And that's another problem that we have with these people on the left, is there's feminine virtues, there's feminine vices. There's masculine virtues and there's masculine vices. But there's very good things about, we need a Christian masculinity. We need Christian fighters. I'm not talking about, even though I carried a weapon in a combat zone and literally was there to fight. And when ISIS was attacking, you had the Assyrian militias who defended their community. God bless them for it. So I'm not saying we should never resort to violence. Sometimes we have to defend ourselves from violence by responding in kind, only when it's absolutely necessary. But if we just have people who have the courage just to say, like Sam Shamoun, I'm very disappointed in Sam Shamoun right now because he's attacking Christian denominations, brothers and sisters in Christ, wasting his efforts in futility. I don't know why he's doing this. You need to focus on, it's what we call it. There's the first Gulf War. We had a lot of what they call it friendly fire, where people are accidentally shooting at their own fellow combatants. Not they think they're shooting the enemy, they're shooting at their own. You don't want to do that. We're in a war. We're in a battle. Don't attack people who are on your side like Sam Shamoun has decided to do. Focus on the threat. Focus on the enemy. We have the truth. We need to focus on exposing error and holding these people accountable. Expose them. Just doing that and educating people, they can be defeated by the truth. As Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So now, here on Assyrian Martyrs Day, Assyrians come together and remember their martyrs, which is good, but we need to start just communicating, not just inside the community itself, but to the world, to the greater Christian world, and to the whole world. This is what's happened, and we need to have accountability. See, one of the problems, and Raymond Ibrahim has said this, and I totally agree with him. It's like, Islamic reform, if this was an internal issue that their religion needs reform, we wouldn't care about it, right? But when their beliefs motivate them to harm and kill us, we have an obligation to condemn those beliefs which threaten us. Those beliefs of jihad, those beliefs of subjecting people of the book to be dhimmis, of demanding jizya, of persecution and dominance, they threaten us as non-Muslims. And we need to say, we can't have it. I don't care what you believe, but if you have beliefs that are motivating you to harm us, we have a moral obligation to condemn those beliefs. So we have a moral obligation and to speak the truth and expose error. And right now, with what's going on in France and England, where they're overrun by radical Muslims and they're taking away the rights of Christians and the ability to speak out, we have to condemn that too. The word of truth has tremendous power. And we need to have men of conviction and strength to speak the truth. You know, they might call you names, they might try to silence you. They've tried to silence me, taking my YouTube channel down, censored me, deplatformed me, canceled me. But we have to stand up, because actually, it's the Assyrians today. It's going to be, what's going to happen to England as they become Islamicized? You know, the people are either going to have to submit to Islamic law, or they're going to have to fight back. Is it too late? Are you going to submit yourself to? I mean, in Islam, you have the Ummah, which is the nation, and if you're not a Muslim, you're an outsider. You have no rights. You're persecuted. Don't subject yourself to that. This whole system has to be brought down. It's an evil, antiquated system. It has to be exposed and brought down. And the way we can do it is speaking the word of truth. And we have to have men and women of courage and intestinal fortitude to do that. And look, I care about people. I feel sorry. You go to the Islamic world, you see Sharia produces human suffering. I feel sorry for the way women are treated over there. It grieves me to see that. If we care about these, we shouldn't want anybody to be subjected to Sharia law. Nobody. I don't want to see people suffering over there, and I definitely don't want to see it over here. And it's coming unless we expose it for what it is. That's the least you can do, is tell the truth. And they'll come after you, but I mean, you think about, if you're a parent or just a human being, what about children? What about the future? What about the future of mankind? What kind of, are you going to subject people to this suffering that we've endured long enough? I hope the day comes where we remember these martyrs, and it's history, not current events. Right now, it's history and current events. We have to change history and bring an end to this oppressive system forever, for the safety and security, not just of the Assyrian people, but for all mankind. It has to be done. So the Assyrian people celebrate the story of the Maccabean martyrs, or the Maronites and other Syriac traditions, on August the 1st. August the 7th is Assyrian Martyrs Day because of what happened August 7th, 1933, when the Assyrian people who fought on World War I, they fought for the Allied powers, and they were betrayed to their deaths by their supposed allies. And the world looked away while there were massacres. So we remember the 7th. But the Assyrian people, they remember Shamun and her sons and the martyrdom of these people for their faith in God. They remember that. This year is August the 29th. And I think the stories, as we look at what's going on in the world around us, we look and take inspiration and direction from what happened in the past. It's good for us to remember the martyrs of the Maccabees, but to remember how that they had to stand up and to affirm their rights and their freedoms against oppression and against error. And that's what we have to do today. And that's why we remember the martyrs, right? If this continues, the trends that we see going on right now, there's going to be more martyrs, and eventually you're going to have total Islamic domination, and no one will remember the martyrs anymore. But that's not going to happen. I really firmly believe that we're going to start to see a mighty move of God, and God's going to very soon execute judgment against radical Muslims. It's happening. But we have our part to play in that by having men of courage. The liberals are assailing masculinity, but we have to have men of courage and fortitude to stand up and speak the truth. So in conclusion, I'm going to show this clip of some Assyrian villages and of a woman who's a victim and saw the atrocities committed, and she spoke out against it. So I have a presentation I'm going to be doing about Assyrian Martyrs Day next week, and please support these events. One of these big events is going to be in, one of these events where I'll be speaking is going to be in Turlock, California. We have a very large Assyrian community. So please support and remember and celebrate Assyrian Martyrs Day. And please like, share, and subscribe to continue to support my work. Thank you, and God bless you.
جيت اللي مسحورة والله مسحورة منها ترمي السليلة الوزارة السرية لبنوني لليلانو مشيخ بجاني لليلانو خاسورايا جال مختلتي كل أجانب أدي أولو مالباب تاتي خزونة أسورايا حكني كل دنيا يا أسورايا كم لا لحظة دي في السنة
أمرك كلام خقالا أمرك كلام هلالا طغرة وذمة بشخالا يمتع عودك شهارا اليوم شنيا وبتلا أرعب يمتع صفتلا أورد مرام تفتلا يصاحب اشترتلا هذا كل كريستيانة عودك إذا خبانة البابا هوا بشكرانة إيش يمشي خاص زغدانة